talking about my life, talking about the life of our fellow students. This is something strange to me. That's why I didn't get afraid to stand here. Yeah, I will not tarry much talking about on this issue of academic freedom or this social responsibility. Since Tuesday, it has been talking of enough, I think. But I will going to make a kind of link between the two as far as especially my country, my nation, my university is concerned. We've been talking of freedom, yeah, and our elders, you whom we are following, we are coming in your footsteps. We are following you just to perpetuate this spirit, as you said. And you said that you fear that probably what you fought for in the recent years will not be kept alive all along the age. And for sure, I too have the same fear. And I don't blame you or us. I probably blame the time. I don't know. With my few skills, probably, I learned that from Eva, I think the word or the revolution or the change has occurred as a result of the strive of the work of intellectuals. But I think intellectuals were not yet collapsed as they are today. We are claiming for freedom, that's true. But claiming it from who? This is a question. Lastly, or finally, at the end of the day, I will leave a question to you, especially to the most, namely, we have here Professor Issa, probably everybody was referred to him as the one who is more, I can say, is more than any other here. What is our position? What could be our position? Where can we stand? Just between academia and politics as students. What is our position? How can we behave in these issues? This is a question I will review to you, and probably you will give me answer. Yes, and I think there is no keen revelation of the future of a country, of a nation, which is beside or apart from the way it treats the youth. And when we talk about the youth, we are talking about ourselves. I think, I remember one of my professors at university told us, when I want to know the future of our country, I will not go to the very east mountain to see mothers, parents who are striving to make their offspring survive, but I will only look at you, how we behave, how we react. This is. And if we as young intellectuals who are growing up are collapsed, make sure that what you fought for in the past years will not reach where you wanted it to reach. Because I can say we are a transitional generation. You give us what you had. You tell us how you lived in past years. You just confide us what you think is your best, and you want us to perpetuate it till probably ever. Yeah, just to make the notion get built up from time to time. This is, and I was just wondering why in your generation you were such bored, but now we fail. Probably some elements I have raised up like age. Now on universities, probably, I don't know, it's a common fact, but in our universities, we are receiving very, very young students, like 16, 17, 15 years. I think somebody of 15 could not stand somebody of 25 in your era. Something else, this is like the change in terms of life. somebody, my colleague here, my friend, my mate, always something that now most of the families are poor. We are raised, educated in the poor families, and that's we are. When we get there, we are intimidated by even this fact. Say, I am poor. I know where I come from. When I'm here, just I will keep everything as it is. Nothing. Just I just keep myself safe, as I don't just disorder or not disorder in this way. But I will keep. I won't do anything which can compromise my the list I have. Or to get there, I was like and say, no, I don't just bring troubles to myself. Finally, currently, we seem that we don't see the future. We seem to be in obscurity. At a time when you are in the second year, you'll be sitting in the restaurant with the leader of your province or something else, just asking you whether very soon when you finish, you'll come and take some position there, here and there, right? But now you know your brothers and sisters are at home. They had graduated from the same university. I particularly mentioned the National University and say, I too am following the same way. Even too, why do I tire myself? Why do I get myself involved in issues which can compromise my life this way? Even I see nothing in the future. What am I striving for? Just please, I think you also as our elders in this way of knowledge, I can say, or skills, you could illuminate for us, and I don't know what you can do. Yeah, and finally, as a solution, I can propose this. As everybody say we not want to be free, want to be free, for sure, want. And when you talk about freedom, I only suggest that, as one of my mates said it, we want to be free in terms of what? Taking a decision. When creating or just when making new decisions, students would be taken into consideration. Their views, their suggestions could be taken into consideration, just to see that you are I am talking about you. Probably they are not. You are not the ones, but you are among. You would be working for just to match or to fit with the needs of the beneficiary. Yeah, this is what I can say. But to conclude, my question is there. I really wanted that you can help us, just to make sure that what you gave us here. I said this has been tremendously important event for me, because I've learned much. I've got an opportunity to sit with you, honorable intellectuals, who have experienced much, who tell us things based on your experience, what you've seen, what you've experienced. This is why I really need that at the end of the day, just when concluding, you will leave us with something that when you go back, we check, this is something we brought from there. Our elders told us to have this. We can do this just to perpetuate, to keep alive their spirit. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Selemani. We'll have the last one, because I'm told the representative of the vice president, now students send delegates to the meetings. The representative of the vice president of Darusso, I'm told, is here. But I will give the floor to Abdulaziz for 3 minutes to give your reflections. And then I will ask the representative of the vice president of Darusso to give their reflections for 3 minutes as well. Abdulaziz Karibu. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Abdulaziz Ali Kata. I'm a third-year student. The problem is the right of demonstration. That is a common problem we have, specifically in the University of Dar es Salaam. According to by law, Judaism by law, Article 30, it's saying that planning or participating in unlawful demonstration, which include planning route for the demonstration, encouraging and providing banners or posters for demonstration. So, demonstrations at the University of Dar es Salaam are generally illegal. If you read by law, they say that a lawful demonstration, but they don't describe what is lawful demonstration. For example, in class, specifically at political science classes, they teach us the role of university student. How can a university student bring change to the society? How can be as a source of change in our societies? And one of the approaches they teach us is demonstration. We can express our demand, we can pressurize the authorities by using demonstration. But when you come to our by law, university by law, our university by law is limiting such a right to demonstrate. So we don't have much autonomy to demand for our rights, whether within university or outside. And also, for example, there is this conflict between Palestine and Israel. We saw on the media on other countries where university students are demonstrating on support of Israel. But can we do it at University of Dar es Salaam? No. Why? Because by law is limiting such a right, so we can't demonstrate. Also, there are some of the factors which led to this problem. One of them is the power of the dean of the student. The dean of the student is very powerful to the extent that a university student government is useless. Yeah. So university student leaders are just symbolic leaders. They don't represent the demand of the students, rather than they take orders from the above, specifically from the dean of the student. So that is a problem. And also, there is this tendency of administration, particularly the dean of students, discouraging the different thinking or attitude. Some of us students, we have a radical attitude or radical thinking. We want change, whether within the university or outside of the university. So whenever they notice there is someone who is radical, who has different thinking, even if you want to compete for the post in a university student government, they cancel your name during screening process. So most of us who are radical, who have the courage to question the authorities, who have the courage to resist on illogical orders and unnecessary laws, we are not given a chance to participate in student government. Even if you have a potential to be on such post, they cancel your name. And also, I propose some of the solutions to this problem. As I said before, university student government is not a full government. It doesn't have an authority. It's just a puppet. They just take orders and do what they are told. So in order to ensure that university students are active within university and outside of universities, I'm proposing the following solutions. The first one, to eliminate the influence of UVCCM in our campus. UVCCM are very influential in our campus to the extent that they determine who is becoming the president of the university. For those who don't know, UVCCM is a ruling party youth wing. So the influence of the ruling party youth wing in the university must be eradicated. That's the first one. The second one, the authority of the dean of students must be reduced. And the last solution, this is the most important. Bylaw must be amended to increase the autonomy of the students, because most of our rights are limited through the bylaw, and whenever you go against bylaw, they cancel your registration, so they will chase you away. You'll no longer be able to be a student. So in order for students to be freely express their thoughts, whether in writing or orally, bylaws, university bylaws must be amended. Thank you.
The last speaker. Can you please? The name? No, he will introduce himself. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I will start by introducing myself. My name is Antipas Pamba. I am a representative of the University of Dar es Salaam Vice President who had been invited here, and I am the Speaker of the USRC at the University of Dar es Salaam. So let me try to explain my views and elaborate on some issues that we have been discussing, and try to make this floor understand what really what really we students at the University of Dar es Salaam perceive. One, I will start by explaining on the aspect of economic freedom. You know, the topic clearly elaborates 3 things. We have economic freedom, we have democracy, and we have sustainable development. So when we start with academic freedom, not economic, academic freedom, what are the aspects of academic freedom? That is the first thing we have to ask ourselves. The first one is the far-reaching right of the individuals at the campus to express what they have as the intellectuals. So this is the first aspect that we need to discuss here as intellectuals. So how do we perceive this? Do we have freedom of study? Do we have freedom of these staffs to write the academics and intellectuals materials and serve to our people? Do we have the right of the students themselves to work as professionals outside? So these are the aspects of academic freedom at part A. So at the University of Dar es Salaam, frankly speaking, when we talk on academic freedom, we have to agree that our university, at the part of giving students a right to write their academic property, that one is prevailing. We have to agree on that. And the second thing, which is an aspect of academic freedom, we have to look at the autonomies of the departments, of the authorities and the obligations that they have in terms of exercising their duties when it comes to the issue of academic. Here at the campus, when a lecturer commits any issue which regards to harassment of a student in terms of acting on academic issues, there are procedures which are followed. We have been experiencing some lecturers have been expelled out of the university for such kind of cases. But what do we say? That still yet we have challenges at some parts. So I'm still on the first part of academic freedom. But lastly, what do we call as an aspect, the last aspect on academic freedom? It is an obligation for the public authorities to respect what really the academic institution gives out, because we realize that academic institutions have power. They do not have special rights than the other people in the rest of the country, but they have power to express what really we think can lead our country to development. So by this part, I can grade it 50-50, that there are points where we at the University of Dar es Salaam work out that students can air their issues on academic issues. They can speak freely, but we really understand that still we have problems. The second part, let me explain on the issue of democracy in regard to the students' government. When it comes to democracy is what maybe Mr. Abdulaziz has been talking about. Most of his explanation had not touched on academic freedom. So I started to clearly elaborate on academic freedom first. So now I'm into democracy. What are the essentials of democracy? The first essential of democracy is that the individuals are free. That is an essential of democracy. So by this part, I can grade that to the students' government. In regard to the student government, we have only 20% out of 100% freedom for the students' government, especially its leaders, to exercise their right freely. Maybe this is what had been explained. Why do I say so? I am serving as a student government, and I have been here at the campus for almost 5 years. This is the 5th year. I have been USRC. I have served as a USRC deputy speaker for 2 times, but also I have served as a USRC speaker at the university, which is the position I'm holding currently. So what am I trying to say? When we come to democracy, our constitution, the Darusso Constitution, which we are talking about here, clearly elaborates the power of the Dean of Students. And the Constitution tells us that the Darusso must perform its function in consultation with the Dean of Students. So I am convinced that we have a constitution which at some point clearly elaborates what is our power. But what is happening? That we hear Mr. Carter talking a lot of points on reforming the issue of democracy. What is happening is that the students have been created with an illusion. One is to define their power. But the second thing is the students do not have freedom. They have been created a sense of fear. So sometimes there are things which clearly are written in the Constitution. They can be practiced, but the students themselves have been created an environment that they can't exercise the powers that they are granted in the Constitution. So why do I say this? Why do I say this? I'm saying this because at some point, I will give an example. We, the USRC, we have power to direct and give orders to the ministers. So at some point, I tried to give orders to the Minister of Loans at the University of Dar es Salaam. Then I was called. Then what are you doing then? Why are you giving orders to the minister? Because the money have been delayed to be put to account of our students. So I said to the Dean of Students, no, madam, this is my constitutional right. The USRC have powers according to Article 13, Sub-Article 8. So they left me off without any problem. So do we have students who have this courage to speak up? But the other thing is, when I'm finishing what I'm trying to deliver out, is which we have to agree all that here at the campus, the process of election to get the students leaders who will stand on behalf of all the students at the campus a little bit, not a little bit, to almost 40%, especially the top position, the vice president, the president, and the speaker, is being intervened by a number of factors. I have heard that Mr. Carter is saying UVCCM, but now I am convinced that it's not only UVCCM. We have been heard that leaders from outside, which do not carry the hand of UVCCM, they are supporting certain students for the benefits of themselves. We have been heading the issues of Red Cross, not only which we are talking of UVCCM. So there are a number of factors which intervene in the election process at the University of Dar es Salaam, especially to the students' government. So these ones, they are the ones which we cry as a student to be eliminated. I have contested for the president, and because of the character that I had, I was cancelled out in the screening process, but I didn't lose up. And even the position of the speaker I'm holding up now, I was almost to be cut off from the position. But the good thing, I thank God that all the contestants who had being nominated who have taken the forms to fill for the position did not have the qualification of being registered as the students here at the campus. So frankly speaking, we found 2 people at the election process, so it was not an issue of cutting out to leave one person. So I was left off, let him go forward because no one else have the qualifications. So what if the qualifications were to other people? Frankly speaking, today I could not be the speaker of the USRC. So this is what is happening, and let me say that we have our problems, but there are points, especially on academic freedom, there are points where we say our university is making a greater step on academic freedom. But on democracy issues regarding to students, still, I suggest we need a great improvement and changes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. According to the timetable, we have 20 minutes for discussion from all the panelists. We had 6. Initially, we were supposed to have 5, but Kamata and Shangwe had a consultation with me as the chair, and we had to give more room for students to air their views. So maybe I'll ask the organizers for 10 more minutes so that we have 30 minutes in order to have at least 20 minutes from the floor, and the last 10 minutes for the panelists to make their concluding remarks. So may I now allow the floor for 20 minutes. Whoever has a contribution, we have had our students. Some of them are student leaders, some of them are just students, and their views on the topic. We can now have a clear discussion of the past and the present. I don't know about the future, but at least of the past and the present. So the floor is open. Please. I'll start here. Karim.
Good morning. First, allow me to congratulate the 6 of you for the good work that you're doing in the student leadership, and for being very articulate and brave and courageous in addressing the issues that you're addressing. I think it's interesting that you are in Africa, you are in Kenya, and you think that we are the same. We are at the same level in terms of democracy, development, and governance. And then you come here and you hear these diverse stories of other countries, other students, and you're just amazed. Because I honestly thought we are past some things. I thought we are past people in power curtailing organizations, people in power trying to bring down the youth. But then that tells us one thing, that the more things change, the more they remain the same. We are not really past the colonization. It's just that it's now being done by our own people. And I think it's sad for Makerere University. I think it's sad that you would still not even get your marks as a student or a student leader just because you opposed authority. And that used to happen even at the University of Nairobi. It's just that now things changed. Student leadership laws did change through an act of parliament, which is also another evil in my country. But I would say that it's also given some sort of space for discussion. And now if you look at how leaders are carrying themselves, I would say that we are somewhere in terms of open door policy with the administration, that you would go and the vice chancellor would listen, and we would express ourselves and say, you know, this is where we want to meet you, and you meet in the middle. Because I think this is the best thing to do. But deterring the leadership from absolute any action, I think that's bad. And I hope that we can join hands in East Africa, in Africa, so that we can help this. And for you leaders, congratulations. And one thing I would want you to do is just leave a better space than you found it. You don't have to change the whole university. It could be just one office. It could be the office of the Dean of Students, where students go to get welfare assistance. Just one office. And then the next person comes to take it to another level. In the fullness of time, we would have changed the welfare of students in the universities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I saw the hand at the back, yes. Karibu.
Yeah, thank you so much. I also want to commend the presenters for the excellent and thought-provoking presentations. I think I actually wanted to get their views, and probably your experience also, Honorable Zito, on the question of the state responsibility to fund education, because I found that missing, and it has been a major demand of students in the neoliberal era. And to some extent, even the demands themselves have been shifting, because the state, because of that, the state's intervention into university affairs and student organization has also made students shifting their demands. So in the early 90s, I want to make Kamata speak about this, when they were introducing what they called, when they started commodifying education. But in Tanzania, it was actually a gradual process because of student resistance. So in the early 90s, I think the demonstrations were, we don't want, they introduced what they called cost sharing. So the demonstrations were against cost sharing. And then later, I think they introduced loans. I think the demonstrations that were organized by Zito and others were against the loans. By the time I joined the university in 2008, we had actually shifted the demands. We were demonstrating that time. We demonstrated in 2008, and 5 public universities were closed down. Against the same, but the demands, our demands were different. We were actually supporting the commodification of education, but we were asking the state to give us loans, and our demand was that every student should to get a loan was not a problem. The problem was to get 100%, because they had introduced unit testing. So our demand was, we are going to buy education, but give us full loans to buy education. By the time Tina was in the first year, when we were demonstrating with others, you are get a loan was actually a matter of luck. It was 10 to 20% who would get loans, and with the grades, most of them would not even get 100%. So their demands were actually not even 100% of loans. It was the right of every student to be given a loan, even if it's a low percentage. By the time the speaker was talking about I think in 2020, when you made that demand to the loan board, the demand that the loan board was delaying their loans for the few that were lucky to get the loans. They made a demand, they gave an ultimatum to the loan board. And the next thing, I think the Minister of Education intervened and expelled those students who issued that statement. I remember Marekela was my student and was suspended for the whole year from the university. And there are no strikes on campus. The last strike was in 2011 at the University of Dar es Salaam. Most of the students, even those in government, when you ask them where is the Revolutionary Square, they don't even know. And it is a historical site at the University of Dar es Salaam. So I wanted to know their reflections around the question of commodification of education and what they are doing about that. The second is maybe you will allow me to speak on behalf of graduate students, even though I'm a member of staff. Because in most cases, graduate students don't take part in student politics on campus. So student politics, even representation, mnawakilishi wa masters na PhD, bungeni na Daruso. Like, do you have representatives from who are graduate students? Hakuna. Oh, you have. So Daruso. Okay, but they are likely not active. And the experience is actually terrible, because first of all, they have to pay for their fees. Second of all, the massification of universities, actually the bulk of the burden of massification is carried out by graduate students. They are the ones who are recruited by the university to assist as teaching assistants with no pay. So the department, for instance, of political science, where I'm from, would recruit graduate students to help in carrying out seminars. And they don't pay them. They don't even waive part of their fees, as other universities would do. And then the lecturers individually would also offload their teaching and even grading tasks to university students. So they would find university students, graduate students have a lot of teaching burdens without any pay, and they don't have anywhere to complain, because they think if they complain, then they are going to be victimized individually but also collectively by the lecturers. So I thought this experience is also worth reflecting, because nobody even expects graduate students to demonstrate as undergrad would do. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you have noted the question of the funding of higher education. So any one of you can help, and we'll be happy to get the experience from other countries as well. Yes? Karibu.
Thank you so much. And thanks to the very interesting presentation. I have about 2, if not 3 questions, and mostly is to push the students and students' representations to reflect on this. So first is on the issue of, when we talk about academic freedom and democracy, and this speaks mostly to the criminalization of student activists on campus, which I think is very, important, and we can see different examples from Tanzania, from Uganda, and Rwanda. But what I was thinking and wondering what you guys think is the opposite of that, on when students now use activism as a way to do crime, I'll say. For example, we've seen examples where students use activists to ban buildings, to ban some university facilities, in the name of seeking for democracy or seeking for academic freedom, if I may say. Now, I'm wondering what you guys think on that. And also the second thing, which I think Prof. Shija, if I'm not mistaken, mentioned yesterday, is the issue of culture. And the speaker from University of Dodoma talked a little bit of that on the issue of fear. Now, I wonder to what extent do you think culture or our identity, for a lack of better word, play in, for example, in Tanzanian context, when they say, oh, Watanzania ni wapole, to what extent that plays for students to actually seek for their demands, you know, and this goes even further to their activist out of class maybe. To what extent students have capacity to challenge a lecturer in class? To what extent do they have ability or capability to ask questions and challenge a lecture in terms of their epistemic freedom in class? You know, so I'm wondering to what extent do you guys think culture or identity play in your activist in class and out of class? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other hand? Karibu. And I'll come this way. Where? No, here, Tina.
Yes, good morning. Yeah, I just want to comment on one of the very interesting issues that was raised by the last but one speaker about the powers of the Dean of Students and how it really does affect the day-to-day activities of the Darusso leadership and the related. I will just share my experience in the last demonstration within the campus, as it was said. So back then, after the students had demonstrated, and most of them were arrested, of course, and including other punitive measures, the leadership wanted to convene, you know, to call for an emergency meeting. I don't know whether the practice is still the same currently, but we would never convene in absence of a representative from the dean of the student's office. So if a representative from there wasn't around, then that means the convening couldn't be legal in certain ways. So they refused to be present, and so we couldn't convene and deliberate on the matters that had faced students who had demonstrated. So it took a while before we were able to sit and discuss how we were going to rescue the situation, specifically on the students who had been arrested and the related. So that was the situation. Until when we had time to sit, some days had gone, although some of other measures were being taken by the leaders, including writing to the authorities and the related. But actually that was the situation. So how sometimes the leadership of the student can fail to execute its duties because of the powers that be that suppressing their powers. And I think that is very important to be dealt with if we really want the students to be autonomous as far as their rights and demonstrations are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come this side now. I'll start here. Yeah. Then back. And then I'll come to you.
Thank you very much. I also would like to commend the presenters. This was quite a good session. I'm interested in Abdulaziz. I noticed that the students and maybe former students clapped. They were really happy about your recommendations, which is also a good sign that your recommendations are acceptable. But as I listened to your recommendations, I wondered, nani atamfunga paka kengele? Because it's very easy to say that such a section should be scrapped off. Those recommendations need to. I think we need to have an action plan about those recommendations. Otherwise, they're good recommendations, but how to implement those recommendations? That I think that is what we should discuss, because otherwise they will end up just as recommendations. Labda kama tutafuata ushauri wa sorry for the Swahili, ushauri wa Professor Shivji, that you just dare to, you have to dare to. But even that one, I have problems with that recommendation. How do you dare, especially in the face of all the restrictions and so on that you talked about in your presentations? Asante.
Asante, yeah. From UDOM, yeah. Karibu.
Thank you very much. I've had an opportunity to serve as a president, and when I was a student, and that came out as an accident, because one guy who happened, it was qualified as a follower of Chadema, won the election. So those who were perceived as followers of CCM had an appeal. So in the end, no one happened to be the president. So there was a vacancy for that matter. So they had to appoint someone. And I was doing my postgraduate. So I was the only person with a memory. And I was appointed. And I served for a period. And I just made a decision to resign, so we can have a democratically elected student representative. So that's the experience in one hand. If you read the University Act, Article 50, subsection 1, and Article 51, subsection 8, the Act provides for the existence of student organizations and other organizations. But when you read into details, the provisions are more of protection rather than enabling. So if there is an area we need to focus on, that is one of them. Another comment, when we were serving at their capacities, there was very little money. For example, at UDOM, Yasil will agree with me, the budget for student organization is almost 200 to 300 million. Am I correct, Yasil?
120, he says.
120. What?
320.
It is 320 million. It's a lot of money. That's why you see the Dean of Students is just too close to these associations. So my very request, I've been to Student Affairs Committee, get time to lead and understand how the university functions. Go into meetings prepared. And remember, you are always a unionist. Defend the interest of your fellow students. Don't join the club, because at the end, you are going to be defending the interest of the oppressor and not the interest of your fellow student. Please, that is important.
Thank you. I had the last hand, yes? You had the hand? You had the hand? Okay, so you'll be the last. I still have a hand. Yes, Karibu.
Okay, thank
You
you.
have the hand, Prof. You'll be the last.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask these students about the electoral process itself, because there is what is called the procedural democracy, about the procedures, the laws that are used during elections. How do you feel? Are they fair? Are they free? Or there are some pathologies which are associated with them? Then the second question is with regard to the external influence in the electoral politics, student politics at this particular university and the other universities. Are there some kind of constraints that are imposed on those external actors during the electoral process. For example, in terms of funding, there are some moments when I see some students' campaign teams heavy loaded with loudspeakers, PI systems. Where does the funding come from? And is there any cap which is given, for example, to such campaign support, as it is, for example, in the National Electoral Commission's regulations? For example, a certain cap is given with regards to what can be funded to a particular candidate and so on and so forth. These are issues which must also be addressed as we think about democracy and freedom of in the academics and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. Kakuru, right? Yeah.
Thank you, the great leaders, for the wonderful presentation. And I want to thank you for your resilience. From the presentations, I noticed that we have some resilient leaders, especially in the context of some of the universities. I wanted to understand how you especially from the Tanzanian and Burundi and Rwanda perspective, how the student leaders have worked with the staff associations to present some of the issues that you want to present. Are there some intersectionalities? Are there meeting points where you find it important that you have to engage leaders? And then, of course, the other point is not a question, but rather a point of reflection. Based on what we discussed on day 1, day 2, and what we are hearing from the learners, and especially the environment we are in, which kind of graduates are we producing? And this is to us now as the facilitators of the learning process. At Makerere University, we have developed a simple term. I hope it will not annoy people here. This is part of academic freedom. We have a term called corporate stooges. Aren't we likely to produce corporate stooges? Who is a corporate stooge? This is a person who has graduated. They are employed. If you tell him, turn this, they turn. Tell them, turn right, they turn. They don't question. Whether a directive is right or wrong, they take it as it is because the boss has guided, even when they are in academic spaces and they are leaders. Because I'm imagining if we have such kind of leaders and they take over the leadership, they are recruited to join academia, and they have been trained in this environment. Which kind of tomorrow are we building? I thank you.
Thank you so much. Prof will be the last, yes. And then I'll come to you. I'll give each one 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentations. Actually, I had decided not to speak, but let me start at home. When I heard Darusso leaders, Abdulaziz and Antipas, it was very painful. Of course, we all knew that there is a very harsh control at this university. But when you hear what exactly and the way it operates, it is painful. The powers of the dean of students to control a student organization, the draconian bylaws which virtually don't allow you to do anything, and equally draconian disciplinary procedures with which you are threatened all the time. Look at this conference, 3 days. Very important topic is being discussed. I have not seen a single member of university management here to come and listen. But forget it, that's to be expected. But what pains me, and that is where I think we should turn the searchlight on ourselves, There has been a deafening silence of Udasa. Where is the faculty? Because at one time the strength of the struggles on this campus was there was a very close link between the faculty and students, Udasa and Darusso. And they together fought. They together mutually for interest, but also advice on both sides. And the members of staff sit in the Senate, they sit in the council. So they are in good position to raise some of these issues. Dean of students, on and off, has been member of staff. How many times the Dean of students has been called to Udasa meeting and censored? What has happened to Udasa? What has happened to us, the faculty? Where are we? Why such deafening silence when you see the students suffering? Which was not the case before. The case of Adolf and his expert was taken up by Udasa. And it reached even the president, if I remember correctly. And the president sent the prime minister at that time, Salim, to apologize. Or was it before that, I think? Yeah, after that, right? Yeah, to apologize. So, Salim, when he came to apologize, that was the case of those two, Basigaza, right? Yeah, it was the case of Basigaza. And a commission was appointed under Professor Sarungi, and I was the secretary. Okay? And there's a report, Sarungi report. But in this, the initiative of the academics, the faculty, was extremely important. So I want to say, really, to ourselves, it is self-criticism. When we see this happening to Darusso, where are we? Where is Udasa? What's happening to Udasa? Udasa was a powerful organization. All these academic freedom workshops they're talking about were organized by Udasa. So really, I really wanted to bring this on the table because it's common, fine. Of course, you can take up issues, you know what administration is, but at some point I think we have to talk about ourselves. And when I say ourselves, I mean the faculty. So students are struggling, having a hard time. What are we doing? And the faculty has capacity to use whatever Senkoro was saying, to use legal channels, to use other channels. You know? But what has our faculty, law faculty has been doing? Drafting oppressive bylaws and draconian laws rather than defending students. That's what's happening. Thank you. Thank you, Zito, for allowing.
Asante sana, Prof. I go back to my panelists. I'll give you 2 minutes each, and please 2 minutes, because we have already taken 10 minutes from the break and the next session. And I've already seen the chair and the panelists for the next section here. So I'll start from Abdulaziz. 2 minutes. If you have anything to respond to, it's not necessary that you speak.
I will speak on the aspect of loan, student loan. This has been for the years, and specifically this year, most of the students have received insufficient enough loan. For instance, there are some of the students of which I was in touch with, they said that they received a less than 20% loan. So if you judge on the nature of their families, the capacity of their economy, they obviously cannot afford this one. As a result, most of the students, they use a meals accommodation, what we call a subsistence allowance, to pay for the fee. And as a result, they are starting to struggle on the campus, specifically on how to afford the meals and other expenses. So this one also is a problem. And the personal, I'm not in the student board, a student government, but I spent almost a lot of time since first year up to now third year addressing the loan problem. The loan is insufficient and the parents cannot afford it, and the students are suffering a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, but you did not respond to Sabato. No, give it to him. Sabato gave an analysis from the demands of the 90s to 2000s, to their times, to the adults' times, and currently now we just demand loans to be sufficient. We will discuss that. I will give my reflections at the end. Karibu,
Thank you.
Robert.
Number one, I think I will comment about two things, the electoral process and also the funding. The electoral process is not always free and fair, like it is being stated by the law. However, when you talk to some people trying to complain how the electoral process is not free and fair, they tell you there are better words. Like they would have said the electoral process must be the best and excellent. But because they use the fair, it is evident enough that some of those hinges are supposed to be there. Sometimes you find administrators are interested in the guild elections, in the students' elections. They have candidates that they have candidates that they are supporting, and through this they can help them. Number one, because to us, for you to contest, you must have a clear GPA, or GPA of 3.0. So you find they have actually helped them to pass around the marks and get onto the ballot papers. They are funding them from the backgrounds to make sure they win elections. And at the end of the day, probably they also help them pass what they want to be passed in the later future. So whereas the process is there, you also need to have connections probably with the administration and all those that run the Electoral Commission. Number two, about the funding for us, you make a budget like I've had. Ours is 328. You make a budget, you present it, and then you start to requisition. They give you that money in installments. So you pray that you request for the why is it even hard for us to come out and speak is because if you have requested for your first installment of the money and you receive it, when they realized in any way you're going wrong, then you know there are going to be issues with the second installment. You have made noise around how the university is bad, how they are treating you in an unfair way, how there are draconian policies, operation and suppression. Then you know there are going to be issues with the second installment of money. Why? Because of your behavior. We cannot be funding your behavior and how you are conducting yourself in the university. Finally, I would love to request that for those that ever studied in Dar es Salaam, and in one way or the other you happen now to be administrators here in Dar es Salaam, you remember all the process you went through, number one, to get here, and number two, how they made it easy for you and how they made the environment easy for you to, blend in. And those are the same reasons as to why you are here. You decided to use the environment to your very best, and now you have become administrators. The campus in of itself can trust you and put you in those positions. Now, for all the students you educate, you expect that one day, just like also in your time, you had a dean of students, and now you are the dean of students. So you expect that one of these students could be in your position. Now, your work, I think, is to make sure you provide to them the same environment that you are given in order to get where you are. And that is just a request. We cannot be here and people are telling us how they enjoyed the university in their early 80s. How for them they were free. How the environment was so good. And all we are talking about now, when they are in those positions, is how they are curtailing our rights and giving us the best environment for us to.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Robert. Yes. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you. By my side, I'll talk about some, I think it's just two issues. The first issue is on academic freedom. That was the first question, was on academic freedom. I'd sincerely and openly say that most of the African universities and the Tanzanian universities, there is little academic freedom. And there are some universities there is no academic freedom. You know, at the universities, the nature of learning is very different from the O levels and primary schools. At the universities, we share ideas with the teachers. The intent, we share knowledge so that we come up with something that is great. But unfortunately, something that comes out is very, very different. A student has an idea, but because the teacher doesn't want to change that idea that he or she has, he will unfortunately, the student who comes up in a class with a different building up idea, it may be great, the student turns out to be an enemy of the teacher, just because he or she tried to point out something that is beneficial to other students. And that comes out, it's not that it will be affected to that only one teacher, but also he or she will find out himself in trouble with other teachers, because you know that the staffs are friends. The staffs are friends as we are here. So when it comes that man there is disturbing him in class, it comes out that the whole staff will affect you consequently. So I think there is little freedom. Let's change. Let's try as our administrators, our university leaders. We have been trying at the University of Dodoma. This also exists. It exists, and I've been experiencing so through my friends. There is a friend of mine who was trying to challenge a teacher, and his challenge was in a good way. But unfortunately, the last term examinations, he didn't commence them. And as we were finishing up the examinations, he wasn't there. He came out to do supplemental examinations. Till the results are being out, he doesn't know whether he will continue the university or not. So I think we ought to have to create and continue having the ideas that the university students and the teachers are friends and they have knowledge that the teacher doesn't have. A student may think far away, so that we can make the knowledge being great and fruitful for the future use. But also the issue is on the last issue is on electoral commissions and whatsoever. We always think that we're seeing that there's freedom of election, there's freedom, but unfortunately no. We all learned history that there are puppet leaders that were existing in the ancient years. Those puppet leaders are coming up but through our faces and our heads. As someone contests for a position, as said Mr. Speaker there, but because he is against the ideas of the few people, he will never sit in that position. Because he stands by the rights of the students, he or she will never get that position. I was affected by that issue. As
10 seconds.
I contested as a member of parliament. First of all, I've been in the students' organization since I arrived at the University of Dodoma since first year, 2020. But currently, as coming up I contested this year as the member of parliament, and I had an intention of being a prime minister because I saw myself fitting there. Unfortunately, it came out that there is some people forcing the speaker not to pass by my name, because I am against the few people for the betterment of many. So most of the leaders we are seeing in the universities, most of the issues rise up. Changes do not occur even if few people make noise, it's because most of the leaders are puppets. There are some leaders, a leader has finished up his regime, but because he had a great contribution for another leader to come in, to chip in for that position, that leader in position will be a puppet to that former leader who made him enter the position, or to the management, or to the political party, or the people who made him in that position. At the last, we shall find ourselves working for the people who made us in the positions, but not the intended people who are the students. So I call upon my fellow students leaders to make sure that we not become puppets. Even if we are, we change for the betterment of people who believe in us, because we are here for the betterment of the students and not the betterment of the management, but the betterment of the students. No loans, little loans, who will say? Not all students will stand up and say to the management, but we, the few who are given a position to work for the students, let's say, when we keep calm, there's no way we shall be meaningful, but we shall have sins too, because that's a sin.
Thank you, Asir. Sylvie?
Thank you so much. Thank you. I would like to respond to the problem. The first question was about the funding for the higher learning institution. In Rwanda, the problem of funding is there, but in terms of living allowance that is given to the student, especially the undergraduate students, it is very few, but it depends to the country's economy. We keep requesting the issue and still not getting the answer. If we compare the amount of living allowance that is being given to the students, and we compare it with the current situation of the economy, inflation, the living allowance is not enough. But we keep requesting, we keep doing the advocacy to the administration, to the government. Maybe they will do it in the future or in the coming years. But when it comes to the offering of scholarship to the students, it is fair, because the scholarship or the funds is being given to the students who is the good performers, who performed well in their higher education, in their high schools, And the second question is about to what extent the identity or the culture praised in the class. During the classes, all the students are equal. Everyone can express him or herself, can give the idea, but it comes the problem to the lecturers. If you come up with the ideas that is in the contrast of what he or she is talking about, it comes the problem. Even you can fail the module because of the idea that you brought. The problem is between the lecturers, the professors who are teaching us. The request is students are mature enough. The university students are mature enough. They can even bring the good ideas than the lecturer. So they need their rooms so that they can express themselves. They can address the issues. They can give the ideas than the lecturer. So they need the rooms so that they can express themselves. For example, during the exams, if you don't respond the questions as it is in the notes, like copy and paste, you can be given the 0. Even if you do paraphrasing, you can be given 0. There is no academic freedom, but we are requesting for it. And the other question is about the procedure of election, or are there any constraints from the external parts during the election, the campaigns? From my experience, there is no external parts during the election in the student union. The election are being conducted only by the students. The students are only allowed to vote. Not all the students, but their representatives. Their representatives are only allowed to vote, not all the students during the election. And during the campaign, you do the campaign for your own, no intervention from the external parts or from the institution government. And the other issue, how the student leaders worked with the staff union. For us, we have in the department, we have the student heads of department, we have the student deans of schools. They worked with the lecturers, they worked with the heads of the department, they worked with the deans of the school. During the councils, they share their ideas and they address the issues, and they address the issues that are available together, those related to academics. It means there is somehow collaboration of the students and the lecturers when it comes to addressing the issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Suleimani from Burundi, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I will simply talk about the issue of loans. As my friends here have already evoked this, even there in Burundi, we can say that when you see the amount of money given as a stipend or school allowance, it's very little compared to the rate of inflation or just how things are expensive in currently. This is continuing procedure to claim for this to be adjusted. And about how student leaders work with the staff associations, yeah, somebody here said something about colonizing your fellow people. This is actually something we are experiencing now. Yeah, focusing on George Orwell's quotation or quote, I can say this: all persons are equal, but some are more equal than others. This is probably what I see. You will see that as vice chancellors are appointed, probably they will appoint even on their behalf the student will be presented just to facilitate the ideas to reach the student. I could just bear this or grab this opportunity to tell my fellow readers here that please serve as a facilitator between the staff and the student, not as an eye of the government in your student. This could be like exploiting your fellow brothers and sisters. And to conclude, just to remind you that my question is not yet, it still is not answered. We really want a kind of a clarification. We see we are in between politics and academia. We want to be as powerful as you are, even more powerful than you are, because we are we are new generation. But we in this interference. Politics need us as new strength, fresh strength. But even the country, academia need us. What stand, what position could we take? Thank you very much.
Yeah, in the course of the discussion, we have other sessions. We'll have a response as well. Karibu, speaker.
Well, thank
for
you.
your last 2 minutes.
Thank you. Let me respond on 3 things. One is the election process that all of us here, we have been talking about it. But we have to clearly understand the election process. What we cry as university students is that we do not really want external influence to enter into the election process. That is the main cry. But when we come to talk on the ongoing issues inside the election process has never been a simple process. So let us understand that in one case, I heard Mr. Carter say that there is an influence of UVCCM. But in real sense, when I came here, and the government which was prior existing when Mr. Zito was a part of it, as I think a minister,
Or the Prime Minister.
you are the Prime Minister. It was the government of Chaso. You remember that. So you find these are discrepancies that people might say. So what I want to say, we are students, but we sometimes, because we are leaders, have a creed that we believe in, especially when it comes to leadership. So you find a student might be attached to one of the political parties that is his or her own creed, but must not be must not be thought as a part which interferes the existing government. So what I'm trying to say, let us free this. What we really cry, we don't want external influence. So these other interventions, there are very many. And that's why the election process has never been simple. Two, we really understand that, and this is what is happening now at the University of Dar es Salaam, that those who are in the top position as administrative, they are very good at listening. But where does really the problem comes from? These who are working with us, students, at the grassroots. I have been serving as a speaker, and I'm frankly speaking, one of the best person I recommend, and I say frankly in this room, is Professor William Anangisye. Even the staff members here can really say that this is a good man, because the way he listens to the problems of the students. But the question is, do you really have the time to meet with the professor so that he can solve your problem? According to his rank, his position, it's very difficult to find him and talk to him on the issue that you are facing. So that is another thing which we really have to admit. If you talk of DVC admin, DVC research, DVC academic, they are very good people. But who we are working with at the grassroots is where the problem starts. So I have to say this so that people do not say that they are bad people. No, they are good people inside this very corrupt system. So we have to say that.
Have you finished?
I'm concluding.
Okay.
Very sorry,
Okay.
Mr. Chairperson.
Yeah.
So let me conclude by saying now the situation is to we students. I'm summing up. We demand for our rights. We demand for the things that we need. And I am one of them who demands, especially these issues of funds. We demand for these things. But really, there is a point that even we students must question ourselves. That do we really or are we really accountable for our options? Because at one point, Daruso was given to run some of the ongoing projects at the campus. But in a real sense, the leaders of Daruso, they were also the same corrupt. So even me as a speaker, I'm striving a war against the corrupt leaders in the Daruso government. So the wars are two. You can fight with the corrupt leaders in the government, but the corrupt staffs. So you understand the scenario, how it is. So we really have to admit, even we students, the money that we allocated for funds, they are, at some point, we misuse them. For instance, the last government, I will speak, I've been a deputy speaker there. In the last government, all the ministers have not been given their certificates because the president and the prime minister have ate the money allocated for the certificates. So you find these scenarios that the issue of integrity must be overlooked in both perspectives. That the staffs and we students. So you find, for instance, the scenario is that the money which was allocated in the last time, it delayed to be given out until I went to Professor William Anangisye, who helped me that money to come out. But when the money came out, still there were corrupt leaders who used it in the student government. So what I say, the issue of integrity must start with oneself, and democracy is very important. Students should be given a room for them to air out their academic writings for the betterment of their nations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So what do you do with the corrupt executive of Darusso? You are the speaker. Do you vote them out? Because you have the power, according to the Darusso Constitution, to recall them.
In the past 2 years, I've been the deputy speaker. You know, serving as a deputy speaker, you have to be humble to the speaker. But in this year, what I can say, if there is any corrupt leader, should not come across the hands of the USRC speaker, because in my perspective, I will not leave any corrupt leader to continue misusing the public funds.
Thank you,
and
Speaker.
If it happens, people will see how the actions are going on.
Thank you, Speaker. Now we have come to the end of the session. I think we had a very good discussions with our students, the student leaders. I'll just make the final remarks, and I'll start with the question that Kamata asked, the one, that why nowadays it's okay, I'm allowed to come here. I think the university is not trying enough to invite people, whether holding political positions or other positions from private sector, from civil society, for discussions at the university. I think that culture is no longer there. And for example, over the last 3 years, this is the first time I'm at the university. And if you do not invite me, I wouldn't be here. And I believe many political leaders would respect your invitation if you had invited them. So I think we have to develop that or redo that culture of inviting different people. Here at the council chamber in 1999, when I was a first-year student, there was a discussion. I think Judge Warioba was invited to give reflections on his reports of the Tume ya Rushwa that was formed by President Mkapa. And the room was full. Some of us even had to follow the discussions from the windows. The room was so full. And I recall one of our colleagues who was from Kenya. At one time, he tried to contest for presidential election of Darusso, and then he was barred from contesting, and we had a lot of demonstrations here at the campus. Asked Professor Shivji, I remember, about thinking, and this is about the discussions we had, trying to be like 1970s or 1980s, and this student asked Professor Shivji, we are no longer being taught how to think. How can we learn how to think? And response of Professor, I don't know if you remember, but it remained as the word that I kept in my head all the time. He just told us, read everything. Just read everything. And through that process, you'll be able to have reflections, to think, and come up with your own views. So I think this can be taken as a starting point for more and more discussions at the university. And I think we still have hopes with our students. Sabato spoke about the issue of funding universities. Yesterday, one of the lecturers was telling me that the government policy now is the universities have to depend on their own. They can no longer get even salary funding from or other charges or from the government. And I think we need to revive the debate about higher education funding. Not only higher education funding, even at the lower levels. Then, by the time we are getting in, the issues of the cost sharing were tiring. It was the times of the HIPIC, higher indebted countries. And I remember we were suspended here following the demonstrations about and the strikes about the loans, and as what Sabato said. And we were in the street while suspended. And our presidents were meeting the heads of the IMF and World Bank. This is 2001, February. The IMF and World Bank had visitation to Tanzania, and they invited 10 heads of states. Museveni, the then late Monawasa from Zambia, Mbeki, Mkapa himself, and many others. Mugabe was there yet. He was not yet being sidelined by these Bretton Woods institutions. And we demonstrated. We demonstrated against the user fees, against the cost-sharing issues in front of the presidents. All 10 presidents were there at the Sheraton Hotel, and we were suspended from the university on about the same issues. And we organized ourselves in collaboration with TGNP, and we demonstrated. And yes, we were arrested. Shivji and other lawyers, almost 8 senior advocates, came to the police station to bail us out. The next morning, President Mkapa gave an order that no, they are free. Of course, I think Mkapa knew that our demonstrations were helping him during the discussions with the IMF and the World Bank. So he ordered our release. Of course, we did not spend time in police cell. So I think the issue should not be making University of Dar like 1970 University of Dar. I think the issue is we have to let young people discover their mission, as what Fanon said. They have to discover their mission and fulfill it or betray it. But they have to discover on their own. We can't reinvent 1970 because there are new issues emerging. Of course, there are still old issues there. But we can learn, and we should learn from the past in order to bring back the kind of debates that we used to have, and also try to influence the policy changes and bring the change, the revolution that we have been calling for. So thank you so much for the session. I've taken time from Zebgoya on your session, but we are sorry. I think it was necessary to give the students enough ample time for to hear them out, to reflect, and they will learn more from the last 3 days. Thank you so much. Now I hand it over to Shangwe or Kamata, whoever. Thank you so much.
Thank you. 15 minutes for breakfast, or brunch rather. Is that agreed? Right? 15 minutes. Okay, so we come back at 11. Let's say 11:15. I'll give you 17 minutes. Okay?